Hey there, folks. Get ready for a heart-tugging tale from Willow Creek, Kentucky, where a little girl named Sophie, her stepmom Rachel, and three mysterious German shepherds turn a quiet evening into a journey of courage and love. It's a story of broken hearts healing, a small town rallying, and dogs with a mission that'll leave you misty-eyed. If you love tales of loyalty and second chances, hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories to warm your soul. Grab a cozy spot. And let's dive into how these pups changed everything. Willow Creek, Kentucky, shimmered under the tender blush of late April, its 5,000 residents tucked into a patchwork of emerald hills where redbud trees flared magenta against the coal-streaked horizon. The town's pulse thrummed through its meandering streets, brick storefronts with hand-painted signs, white-steepled churches echoing hymns across dew-kissed lawns, and clapboard homes where porch swings swayed under the weight of shared stories. The air blended the sweet tang of blooming honeysuckle with the faint rumble of freight trains snaking through the valley, their whistles a lullaby to generations. At Harper's Market, a gravel lot fringed with wild daisies, the evening's hush shattered when 7-year-old Sophie Hayes sucked in a sharp breath, her small hands tightening around her stuffed turtle. Shelley, as three massive German shepherds emerged from the dusk's lengthening shadows. Their amber eyes locked onto her family's navy pickup with an intensity that rooted her to the back seat, not predatory, but purposeful, like chess players studying a board. Sophie, wise beyond her years, knew these weren't ordinary strays, their movements were too choreographed, their gaze too piercing. The largest, a grizzled male with a scar carving a jagged path across his muzzle, pressed his paws to the driver's window, breath fogging the glass inches from her face, his presence both commanding and calm. Her pulse quickened, not from fear but from a spark of recognition. These dogs wanted something, and they'd chosen her to find it. The second shepherd, leaner with a subtle limp in his hind leg, circled to the tailgate, his steps deliberate, while the third, a female with a softer, almost mournful stare, stood sentinel by the passenger door, completing a silent triangle around the truck. Sophie's stepmom, Rachel Turner, pushed through Harper's creaking glass doors, arms cradling grocery bags, her auburn braids swinging as she murmured lyrics to an old Alison Krauss song. At 35, Rachel carried the quiet strength of a woman who'd coaxed broken-winged hawks back to flight and nursed orphaned raccoons through sleepless nights, her life a tapestry of solitude woven at Willow Creek's Wildlife Center. Her ease evaporated when she spotted the dogs, bags slipping from her grip to shatter on the asphalt, pickle jars and soda bottles exploding in a chorus of glass, as her hazel eyes met the scarred shepherd's steady gaze. A flash of teeth, brief but sharp, sent her heart lurching, memories of a childhood dog attack flooding back, a neighbor's hound, all snarling chaos, tearing into her thigh at 9. Leaving a jagged scar and a phobia that still woke her gasping from nightmares. Her breath shallowed, knees locking as she crouched behind a cart corral, instincts at war, protect Sophie. But don't provoke the beasts circling her stepdaughter. Sophie, you okay? She called, voice splintering with strain, barely audible over the lot's evening buzz. Sophie pressed her cheek to the window. Hazel eyes wide but unshaken, her small frame steady despite the dog's size. They're not mean, Rachel, she said, voice soft but certain. They're looking for something, someone. Rachel hadn't envisioned herself as a stepmom, nor a mom at all. A wildlife rehabber, she'd crafted a world where creatures didn't demand conversation, owls blinked solemnly. Foxes vanished into the dusk, leaving her heart full but unburdened. Her scar faded to a pale crescent, but the panic clung, keeping dogs at arm's length, their unpredictability a trigger she avoided with practiced sidesteps at vet clinics or neighbors' yards. Then Tom Hayes crashed into her orbit at the county fair 2 summers ago, his crooked smile and quiet warmth slicing through her defenses like a warm blade. His daughter, Sophie, was a silent enigma, her world fractured 3 years prior when her mom, Lily, spun out on a rain-soaked curve, leaving Sophie with a handful of memories she polished like heirlooms. At 7, Sophie spoke mostly to Shelley, the turtle Lily gave her last Christmas, her hazel eyes catching details adults overlooked. Stray cats shadowed her to the mailbox, sparrows perched close at recess. Drawn to her stillness, as if she carried a piece of the wild in her heart. Rachel tried to bridge the gap, pancake mornings, braided bracelets, whispered bedtime tales, but Sophie's murmurs built a wall. Her grief a mirror to Tom's, leaving Rachel orbiting their pain like a distant star, her love for them knotted with fear of falling short. The Hayes family clung to a 40-acre farm. A stubborn relic of Tom's granddad's promise that land endures. Its rocky soil yielded little but tax bills and busted fences, mocking their hopes with every lean harvest. Tom, 40, poured concrete across eastern Kentucky, his 14-hour days leaving his hands rough as oak bark, his hazel eyes shadowed with exhaustion, yet the mortgage lagged 90 days, the power cut twice last winter. Sophie shivering under quilts as Rachel boiled water on a camp stove. Tom's sorrow over Lily kept him distant, his laughter a ghost, while Sophie's quiet mirrored his, her sketches of birds and stars piling up unsaid. Rachel navigated their orbit, her rehaber's patience tested, her love for them a fragile thread stretched taut by the farm's weight and her own buried fears. Rachel inched toward the pickup. Her pulse a drumbeat in her ears. Her training taught her to read animals, no raised hackles, no bared fangs, just a calculated watchfulness that unnerved her more than aggression. "Sophie, stay put," she said, sliding into the driver's seat, locking the doors with trembling hands as the scarred shepherd pressed closer, his amber eyes boring into hers, steady but unyielding. Then she noticed, a leather collar, worn but sturdy, half hidden in his thick black and tan fur, glinting with a metal tag. The others wore them too, subtle but deliberate, marking them as claimed. "They've got owners," Rachel muttered, fumbling her phone to call Tom, no answer, his crew deep in a bridge pour. Animal control promised a truck in 2-3 hours, busy night. Sophie pressed her palm to the glass where the female shepherd stood, her gaze gentle but fixed. "Rachel, they'll get hurt out here, cars, people." The lot hummed as dusk deepened. Shoppers casting wary glances, their carts rattling. Old Mr. Dawson, a retired miner, shuffled near, then backed off when the scarred dog turned, calm but firm, a silent boundary drawn. Rachel cracked her door, breath hitching, her phobia clawing as she reached for the leader's collar. He stood like granite, letting her fingers graze a tag, and a small, weathered capsule. Strapped tight to the leather, the size of a shotgun shell, its surface scratched but secure. "What's that?" Sophie leaned forward, clutching Shelley, her curiosity a spark in the dim cab. Rachel unscrewed it, heart pounding, revealing a tightly rolled note and a plastic-wrapped photo, her hands shaking as she unfolded the paper under the flickering dome light. The dogs watched. Their stillness await, their amber eyes tracking every move with uncanny focus. The handwriting was shaky but resolute, etched with care, "I'm Samuel Carter, U.S. Army, retired. If you're reading this, I'm gone or unable to care for my dogs, Rex, Scout, and Daisy. They've been my family for 9 years. Rex, the scarred one, was my service dog after Iraq. Trained to ground me through the dark. Scout and Daisy worked therapy, easing others' pain. My cousin, Henry Walsh, swore to protect them, but I fear he's after profit, not their hearts. They're trained, valuable, and must stay together with someone who'll love them true. My truck was sold to cover medical debts, they may chase it scent, seeking home. Please. Give them peace. Contact VA Louisville to verify my name. God bless you." The photo captured a frail man in a wheelchair, gray hair thinning under a faded cap, flanked by the 3 shepherds. Their posture crisp, eyes blazing with loyalty despite his sunken cheeks. Sophie whispered, her voice a thread, "They think we're Samuel, our truck's like his." Rachel glanced at their Navy pickup. Bought for $3,000 at a state auction 4 months ago, its history a blank page she'd never questioned. "We need to check this," she said, dialing her wildlife center, her voice steadier than her pulse. No reports of missing shepherds, but Dr. Clara Evans, her boss, offered to scan microchips tomorrow. Sophie stroked the female's head through a cracked window, unafraid. "They're hungry. Rachel, I can tell, their sides are tight." Rachel's chest tightened, her phobia screamed retreat, barking echoes from childhood ringing in her ears, but Sophie's pleading eyes, bright with a rare hope, anchored her. She called VA Louisville, confirming Samuel Carter, a 70-year-old veteran with a Bronze Star, but privacy laws blocked further details, the clerk's voice clipped. Tom finally answered, his tone gritty from a long shift. "3 dogs, Rachel? We're scraping by, and your thing with dogs, it's real. They're service dogs, Tom, for a veteran," she said, glancing at Sophie, whose smile cracked her heart open. "The note begs to keep them together. Shelters'll split them, you know that." A long, weary sigh crackled through. "One night, Rachel. We sort it tomorrow." Sophie's face lit like a sunrise, and Rachel felt the ground shift beneath her. 3 dogs had breached her carefully built walls, and a quiet voice whispered they might not leave. The Hayes farmhouse stood weathered against the Kentucky twilight, its peeling paint and sagging porch bathed in the glow of a single bulb flickering like a tired star. Rachel's pickup crunched up the gravel drive. The 3 German shepherds sitting like statues in the bed, their steady breaths a soft rhythm against the engine's low growl. Sophie twisted in her booster seat, her hazel eyes dancing with a warmth Rachel hadn't seen since their wedding under Willow Creek's courthouse oak. A hurried vow swapped amid Tom's grief and her own uncertainty. Tom Hayes waited on the porch, arms crossed over his flannel shirt, his broad frame taut from a day hauling rebar across a county bridge site. At 40, labor and loss had carved deep lines into his brow, his sandy hair thinning under a faded cap, his hazel eyes shadowed with a fatigue that went beyond bone. "Daddy!" Sophie called. Scrambling out, her sneakers kicking up dust as she ran to him, her energy a fleeting spark in the dim evening, Shelley the turtle dangling from her hand. Tom's gaze snagged on the dogs. His jaw tightening, a flicker of unease crossing his weathered face. "Rachel, what's all this?" he asked, voice low, rough from shouting orders over machinery. "They're not strays," Rachel said, stepping down from the cab, the groceries left shattered at Harper's a distant regret. "Service dogs, found us at the market, surrounded the truck with Sophie inside. They belong to a veteran, Samuel Carter." She recounted the parking lot standoff, the capsule's note, the eerie link to their auction-bought pickup. Tom scrubbed a calloused hand over his face. The rasp of skin against stubble loud in the quiet. "We're 90 days behind on the mortgage, Rachel. Fences are rotting, power's on notice. And he glanced at Sophie, now hugging his leg. And lowered his voice to a near whisper. "Dogs freeze you up. Saw it at the vet last month, that yappy mutt had you bolting. How's this gonna work?" Rachel's scar itched through her jeans. A phantom burn from that long-ago hound's jaws, her childhood screams echoing in her mind, but she squared her shoulders, meeting his eyes. "One night, Tom. They're trained, not wild. Not jumpy. We'll dig into it tomorrow." She opened the tailgate, bracing for chaos, but Rex, Scout, and Daisy stepped down with military precision, their amber eyes scanning the farm before settling on her. Awaiting a cue. Sophie grabbed Daisy's leash, fearless, her small frame dwarfed but steady. "They can sleep in my room," she declared, voice bright with hope. "Barn," Rachel said. Sharper than intended, her phobia twitching like a live wire. "Hay stalls, blankets, they'll be fine." Sophie's lip trembled, her eyes dimming, but she nodded, leading Daisy as Tom trudged toward the barn. The dogs following in eerie formation, Rex at point, his scarred muzzle high, Scout limping faintly, Daisy alert but soft, her gaze flicking to Sophie. The barn smelled of old hay and motor oil. Its stalls empty since the last horse left a decade ago. Tom spread blankets, muttering about wasted time, but his glance at the dogs held a grudging respect for their discipline. Dinner was a tense affair, leftover chili congealing in chipped bowls, Sophie chattering over her spoon while Tom stared into his meal, barely touching it. Rex helped soldiers. "Daddy, like Uncle Mike in the desert," she said, her voice lifting as she invoked Tom's brother, a Marine lost to an IED in Afghanistan 7 years back. Tom's spoon froze mid-air, his knuckles whitening. "Soph, they're not ours," he said, voice flat but heavy. "We can't keep them, money, space, everything's against it." "They chose us," Sophie insisted. Her hazel eyes fierce, a spark of defiance Rachel hadn't seen since Lily's funeral, when Sophie clutched Shelley through the eulogy, silent but unyielding. "They're sad without their person. They belong to someone else," Tom said, softer now, regret shadowing his face as Sophie's expression crumpled. She excused herself, slipping to her room, Shelley clutched tight. The door clicking shut like a dropped stone. Rachel faced Tom across the scarred oak table, the silence thick. "She laughed today, Tom," she said, voice low but urgent. "Really laughed, first time since we carved Lily's name on that stone. I know we're stretched thin, but she's fading, and you see it too." "And you?" Tom's voice dropped, his eyes searching hers. "You flinched at a chihuahua last month," Rachel, went white as chalk. "3 shepherds, big as these? That's a mountain for you." Rachel's fingers traced her scar through the denim, the memory of stitches and her mother's sobs vivid, but she held his gaze. "They're different. Controlled, like they know I'm shaky. And Sophie, she needs this light, Tom, even if it's just a flicker." He leaned back, skepticism etched deep. "The note mentioned a cousin, Henry Walsh. Sounds like he's trouble, maybe after cash. Service dogs like these? They're worth thousands, Rachel, could bring a legal mess we can't afford." She hesitated, then laid it bare. Her voice steady despite the weight. "It's the truck. Samuel sold his to cover debts, they recognized it, thought we were him coming back." Tom's eyes widened, his fork clattering. "We're driving a dead guy's truck. Or a sick one's, the VA wouldn't say." She reached for his hand, rough as sandpaper. "Doesn't it feel meant, Tom? Them finding Sophie. Now, when she's so lost?" "Don't spin fate on me," he said, pulling back, his chair scraping. "I'm breaking my back to keep this farm, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. Dogs aren't a sign. They're a bill." Their words cut short, a soft thud from Sophie's room, the faint creak of her window sliding open. They bolted down the hall, hearts pounding, to find her bed empty. A breeze stirring her curtains, small footprints pressed into the dirt below. "The barn," Tom growled, sprinting across the dew-slick grass, Rachel's boots pounding behind, her flashlight beam dancing wild. Moonlight spilled into the barn, painting the hay-strewn stalls silver, where Sophie lay curled between Rex and Scout, Daisy's head resting gently in her lap. The dogs looked up. Their amber eyes calm but protective, a silent vow to guard her. "Sophie!" Tom snapped, fear sharpening his voice to a blade. "They were lonely," she said, unflinching, her small hand stroking Rex's scarred muzzle. "Rex hurts here," she touched her ribs, "and Scout's tummy's not right. Daisy says they've been lost a while, looking for home." Rachel knelt, her pulse racing but her hands steady. Checking Rex's side, matted fur hid a healing gash, raw but not infected. Scout shifted, a low whine escaping, his ribs stark under his coat. Tom's resolve wavered, his eyes softening as he watched Sophie. So small yet fierce amid the dog's quiet strength. "1 week," he said, voice rough but cracking. "We find Samuel or a proper home. Soph, you can't get too attached, hear me? Her nod burned with defiance. A stubborn hope Rachel felt echo in her own chest, a fragile bridge between them all. Dawn broke sharp and cool, Rachel stirring before her alarm, nightmares of snapping jaws fading as duty called her to the barn. Her phobia clawed, but she pushed through, vet kit in hand, the farm's quiet wrapping her like a quilt. The dogs sat as she'd left them, Rex at attention, his scarred face regal. Scout alert despite his limp, Daisy stretching but keeping distance, sensing her unease with an eerie intuition. "Morning," she said, voice wobbling in the vast barn, its beams creaking softly. Rex approached, offering his wounded side without prompt, his trust disarming her fear like a key in a lock. She cleaned the gash, hands steadier than she'd dreamed, whispering. "Good boy," the words foreign yet warm, a bridge to a girlhood lost. Sophie appeared in the doorway, pajamas dusted with hay, her voice a soft chime. "Daisy knew you'd come, she heard you first." The next days blurred into a rhythm. Rachel set feeding schedules, measured kibble from bags Tom grumbled but bought, checked wounds with a rehabber's precision. Her fear ebbed. Each quiet interaction a step toward trust. Rex blocked the farm's rogue turkey, its squawks no match for his calm stare, earning Rachel a shaky laugh. Tom softened, swapping the dog's frayed collars for new ones. Claiming, "It's practical," they were rubbing raw. Sophie bloomed, her silence traded for chatter, reading her schoolbooks to the dogs, teaching them Shelley's Friends, a stuffed frog. A bear, her laughter spilling like sunlight. "Daisy says Samuel's sick, not gone," she told Rachel over breakfast, day 6, her spoon paused mid-bite. Calls to VA Louisville hit walls, Samuel existed. But no status shared. Online posts, vet checks, local flyers, all dead ends, the dogs passed a locked door. Day 8, Rachel took Scout to the wildlife center, his limp worsening. Dr. Evans's ultrasound revealed a stomach mass, $4,000 surgery or months left, maybe less. "He's strong otherwise," Clara said, her eyes kind but firm. "Time's tight." Rachel's heart sank, temporary or not. Scout's life rested on them, a weight heavier than their bank account's red ink. Back at the farm, Sheriff's Deputy Kate Miller waited on the porch, her cruiser's lights off but her face serious. "Got a report. Henry Walsh claims the dogs, says he's Samuel's heir, has papers." Tom's fists clenched. Samuel's note warned about Henry, said he's after profit, not care. Miller nodded, notepad out. "Family fights over pets happen, but Walsh is pushy, claims legal rights. I'll dig deeper." Sophie clutched Daisy, her voice small but fierce. "Scout's sick, they'll let him die." "You've got them for now," Miller said, softening as she met Sophie's eyes. "Especially with medical needs, law's on your side till we sort it." She drove off, dust curling in her wake. And Rachel faced Tom, the evening air heavy. $4,000, Tom, we're drowning already." "There's more," she said, voice low, her discovery a stone in her throat. "Scout's microchip, it's Army. Tied to Samuel Carter and Captain Daniel Hayes." Tom froze, his breath catching, his father, a ranger, dead 20 years, his name a quiet legend in family stories rarely told. "It's him. Tom, their link's real, dates line up with his service." Night cloaked Willow Creek in a velvet hush, the Hayes farmhouse alone flicker against the hill's dark curve, its porch bulb casting a soft halo over the sagging steps. Sophie slept in her narrow bed, Daisy curled at her feet, a concession Rachel had made, her phobia melting like frost under the dog's steady presence, their quiet loyalty a balm to her scars. Tom and Rachel kept vigil in the kitchen, their phones poised for Dr. Clara Evans's update on Scout, whose condition had teetered since the center's last call. Rex paced the hall, his scarred muzzle low, as if sensing the thread tying his brother to life. Mark Lawson, Clara's friend and a retired K-9 trainer with a face weathered by years in desert sun, lingered at the table. His gray eyes thoughtful over a mug of cooling tea. "Those dogs," he said, voice gravelly, "they're not just service-trained, elite, military grade. That chip, that behavior, it's rare. Purposeful." At 5:30 a.m., the phone jolted them. Rachel's hands shook as she answered, her heart a drumbeat. Clara's voice was taut. "Scout's fading fast, Mass is pressing his organs. Surgery now, or he's got days, maybe hours." They left Sophie with Mrs. Lane, the widowed neighbor whose casseroles had fed them through lean winters, and raced to the wildlife center. Rex and Daisy steady in the pickup's bed, Mark following in his dusty Jeep, his offer to help a quiet anchor. Dr. Evans met them at the center's back door, her scrubs wrinkled. Eyes heavy with sleepless worry. "The mass is crushing his stomach, surgery's his shot, but it's risky," she said, leading them to Scout, who lay in a prep kennel, his amber eyes dull but meeting Rachel's with a flicker of resolve. "Do it," Tom said, his voice raw, hands clenched as if he could will Scout's strength. Mark knelt by Rex, murmuring, "Your brother's a fighter, same as you." The dog sat statue still. Daisy's head tilted as if listening to a distant call, their calm a stark contrast to the storm in Rachel's chest. Hours crawled, Rachel scrubbed in to assist, her rehaber's precision steadying her nerves. While Tom sat with Sophie, who'd insisted on coming, her small hand sketching Rex's scar to keep fear at bay. Mid-surgery, the center's door banged open, Deputy Kate Miller strode in. A handcuffed man in tow, his face flushed with defiance. "Henry Walsh," she said, her voice clipped. "Caught forging Samuel's bank accounts, admitted he dumped the dogs, planned to sell them for $30. 000 ahead." Walsh sneered, his suit rumpled. "Military assets, not your pets. Worth a fortune." "Their family," Tom snapped, stepping forward, his broad frame a wall. "Samuel didn't trust you, said you'd cash them out." Miller's grip tightened on Walsh's arm, her eyes narrowing as she nodded to Tom. "He's facing fraud, statements later." She hauled Walsh to her cruiser. His protests fading into the morning haze. Dr. Evans emerged from surgery, sweat beading her brow, a tired smile breaking through. "Scout stable, Mass is out, clean margins. He'll pull through with care." Sophie flung herself at Daisy, tears soaking her fur, her voice a sob of joy. "He's okay." Rachel's knees buckled, relief flooding as Tom steadied her. His hand warm on her shoulder, a silent bridge rebuilt. A call upended their fragile calm, Samuel Carter wasn't dead. In hospice near Lexington, 70 miles north, he'd asked for his dogs. His voice faint but urgent through a nurse's relay. They drove at noon, Scout safe at the center under Clara's watch, Rex and Daisy calm in the pickup's bed, their amber eyes scanning the passing hills as if tracing a map home. Sophie clutched Shelley, her silence heavy, sensing change. At Willow Haven Hospice, a brick sanctuary framed by blooming dogwoods, Samuel waited in a sunlit courtyard, his wheelchair dwarfed by towering magnolias. Frail but fierce, his silver hair sparse under a faded army cap, his blue eyes burned with life despite his sunken frame. The dog surged forward, whining softly, nuzzling his trembling hands, Rex pressing close. Daisy's tail a hesitant wag, their joy tempered by his frailty. "My kids," Samuel rasped, stroking Rex's scarred muzzle, tears carving tracks down his weathered cheeks. Rachel knelt. Voice steady as she shared the story, the market lot, the note, Scout's surgery, Walsh's betrayal. Samuel's gaze softened, locking on Tom. "Tom Hayes, Daniel's boy. Your dad saved my life. 73, Rangers. Carried me 3 miles under fire. Named my dog's line for him, honor." Tom swallowed hard, his voice catching. "The chip, Dad's name. They found you. Samuel said, a faint smile breaking. Knew you're good, heart like Daniel's. He pulled a folder from his chair, hands shaking, ownership papers, notarized, clean. Weeks left. Maybe less. They're yours, keep 'em together, for me. Sophie stepped forward, hugging him, her promise a whisper. We will, Mr. Samuel. He faded, his smile lingering, eyes heavy. They chose right. Walsh struck back 2 weeks later, bailed out and lawyered up, claiming inheritance in Lexington's packed courthouse. Judge Ellen Price, stern but fair, heard testimony from Captain Laura Reed, Samuel's former CO, who confirmed his intent, no kin, dogs willed to the Hayeses. VA records unveiled Samuel's bond with Daniel Hayes. Forged in a '73 ambush, Daniel's courage saving Samuel's squad. A sealed letter, declassified that morning, detailed Samuel's distrust of Walsh, taped talks of his profit schemes, $40,000 per dog to a security firm. Transfers binding, Price ruled, her gavel a thunderclap. Dogs stay with the Hayeses. Walsh's fraud goes to the DA. The gallery, Willow Creek neighbors. Veterans, Clara, erupted in cheers, Sophie clinging to Daisy, Rachel's tears falling free as Tom squeezed her hand, their family sealed. Samuel passed 3 days later, his funeral a quiet affair at Lexington's Veteran Cemetery. Rex and Daisy stood proud beside Sophie, their vests gleaming. Scout came home, his incision healing, to a town transformed, $7,000 raised by neighbors, kids taping hero dog drawings to the farmhouse door. Mrs. Lane baked pies. Mr. Dawson donated kibble, the church quilt guild stitched beds for the barn. 6 months on, the Carter Canine Fund launched under a harvest moon, training service dogs for veterans. Samuel's $100,000 gift at seed, swelled by $20,000 in donations. Rachel, her phobia a memory, led it, her voice steady at town halls. Tom turned the barn into a kennel, his concrete work now for veteran homes. Purpose in his hands. Sophie thrived, her sketches now of dogs and hills, her laughter a melody, her silence buried. One July evening, fireflies weaving gold through the dusk. Rachel watched Sophie race across the farm with Rex, Scout, and Daisy, their barks a joyful chorus. Tom fired up the grill, his laugh deep and free, his arm around her waist. They found us, he said, voice warm with wonder. Rachel nodded, the dogs glancing back, amber eyes aglow with purpose, guarding their own. A shadow in a lot had sparked a light, Samuel's legacy stitching a fractured family whole. Their farm no longer a burden but a beacon for healing, one loyal heart at a time. What can we take away from Sophie, Rachel, Tom, and those incredible shepherds, Rex, Scout, and Daisy? This story teaches us that healing often comes from the unexpected, like 3 dogs who see past scars and grief to find a family in need. It's about trusting the quiet instincts that guide us. Whether it's a child's empathy, a veteran's legacy, or a town learning to open its heart. Rex, Scout, and Daisy remind us that love doesn't judge your past, it builds your future. One loyal step at a time. No matter how broken life feels, there's always a spark waiting to light the way, sometimes in the form of a wagging tail or a second chance you didn't see coming. Now it's your turn. Has an animal or a moment ever changed your life when you least expected it? Drop your story in the comments, I'd love to hear it. Give us a like if these dogs stole your heart. And let us know where you're watching from, Kentucky, California, or somewhere else. Hit that subscribe button to catch more stories that lift you up, because who knows, the next one might speak straight to you.